everyone. Thanks for joining us this week on the weekly Niners news update. Just want to go over some big re-signings and a couple former Niners that have agreed to deals on other teams. Not a whole lot of news beyond that this week, so just going to fill you in on the latest. All right. So of our signings, the first notable signing is actually a new player that we picked up. We got safety George Odom on a 3-year deal, the former Indianapolis Colts safety, primarily a special teams player. But he's going to be coming over, and he is now the third player that we've added to improve our terrible special teams that we had last year.
Yeah, so, that's definitely needed.
Yeah, and I mean he could end up filling in at safety if he needs to, because obviously Jaquiski Tart is still a free agent. There's still a possibility that the Niners might bring him back, but he has not signed anywhere as of right now. So we'll have to see. But he's more known for a special teams player. Obviously, we still have Jimmy Ward, and we have Talanoa Hufanga at safety also.
And he had a good season last year.
He definitely came on, as the season
Yeah,
went
he's
on.
definitely coming on. I wouldn't say great, but yeah, he's coming on. I expect to see good things out of him this next season.
Yeah, I really liked what I saw out of him and Ambry Thomas as the season progressed.
Yes,
I'd like to have
Ambry
seen
Thomas
more
as well.
I'd like to have seen more out of Diamador Lenore, but maybe we'll get to see more next season.
You guys got so many guys with these awesome names, like Talafanga. What is it? What is? I don't even.
Talanoa Hufanga.
Talanoa Hufanga, and then Diamador Lenore or Lenore, or whatever. I like to say it differently, but a lot of fun names to say.
Yeah, they are fun. They are fun. Yeah, and they can play well. They've got a lot of talent, so hopefully they get more opportunities.
Definitely.
Also, in addition to that, we also, this is a signing that just recently, they've had it for a couple weeks, but it just recently got announced officially. They also signed a defensive lineman, Hassan Ridgeway, the defensive tackle, away from the Eagles. He appeared in 17 games last year, 1 start, and finished with 20 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. He also appeared in the Eagles' postseason game and picked up 1 tackle in that game as well. So he's definitely a depth signing. Obviously, we as we mentioned on last week's show, we lost DJ Jones and Javon Kinlaw, obviously coming back from injury. Although, from what Kinlaw is saying, Kinlaw is going to be coming back hungry as hell. I know I showed you what he said, and so yeah, that's more or less expected to be a depth signing. Obviously, we're expected to get Kinlaw back next season, and we'll have to see how he does. Obviously, I think he's a solid depth player that can add to our defensive line rotation. Also, some of the other moves we made. We brought back backup tight end Ross Dwelley on a 1-year contract, which he's Kittle's primary backup.
Yeah, I'm glad to see him come back. He's been a good backup tight end for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish he got more opportunities when he was in there, and we used more 2 tight end sets and threw to him more. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'd like to see more of Charlie Warner too. I'd really like to see us use some more 3 tight end sets and just run off of that. Maybe next year. We'll have to see. We also brought back Jeff Wilson. He's officially re-signed. Jeff Wilson Jr. on a 1-year, $1.85 million contract with $530,000 guaranteed. So definitely a value for what he can bring to the table. I mean, Jeff Wilson's a guy that over the last couple seasons has stepped up pretty well for us. I mean, he was our leading rusher a couple years ago. I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was, it was last year. It was the prior year, 2020, when he had 600 yards and 7 touchdowns. Last year, he had 294 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he only played 9 games. So good to get him back. He's obviously going to add running back depth with JaMychal Hasty, who we re-signed, and Elijah Mitchell. And then we might even draft another running back as well now that we don't have Raheem Mostert, because Raheem went on to Miami, obviously.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And it seems like the running back position Yeah, it seems like the running back position being very, very deep is very important for the Niners and Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah,
that seems like one of his main. To have, even if you got 3-4 running backs, that seems like what they like. Because if anything goes wrong with
backs.
one, and
yeah, we churn through backs. It seems like by the end of the season, they've all gotten playing time. Like these guys are usually getting banged up with that zone run scheme. They're all getting pretty tagged up. But yeah. So let's see here. I know I've got a list here. Oh yeah. We re-signed a lot of our own guys. Obviously, Hassan Ridgeway and George Odom are the two new players we got. But we also brought in another depth player, Dante Johnson, on a 1-year deal. Dante appeared in 16 games last year, 3 starts. He ended up coming in after Josh Norman got pretty penalty happy late in the season. And
oh God, fucking Josh Norman.
Josh Norman's not coming back. We know that at this point. He was like a one year player, and now that we've got Charvarius Ward, we're going to roll out there with Emmanuel Mosley and Charvarius Ward.
They're going to say, go ahead and go.
It'll be interesting to see if Josh Norman does catch on anywhere, because he did lead the league in forced fumbles. But his coverage.
I imagine he's probably going to get an opportunity somewhere. I would.
They should move him to safety with his. I mean, his coverage is just a liability at this point.
Yeah, it's like Landon Collins. Like once they moved him to linebacker, dude was phenomenal, and then now we don't have him anymore. But which is understandable given his cost. But still, players sometimes if they're working out much better in a certain position, you should think about changing it. It seems like players in the NFL never want to do that though. They're like, no, I'm this player, I'm this position. That's what I do, and that's what they.
I mean, unless you're Taysom Hill gonna play some time.
Unless you're Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's like, I don't care what position you want me to play. You want me on the football field? I'm gonna play.
Which I respect. That. I'm starting to like him more now too. Maybe it just took Drew Brees and Sean Payton leaving for me to start.
Yeah, that definitely helped.
Although they're in the NFC, so I'm never hoping that the Saints do too well, so they can just fuck right off.
Of course.
But yeah, so Dante, what I like about him is he appeared in 16 games last year, and as we mentioned, availability is great. So I mean, we need all of that we can get. So I imagine he'll probably be like the 3rd or 4th corner. He might even end up being our new nickelback, because as we're going to mention here in a second with. Some of the losses, because we did have some losses as well. I won't get it. There's one more guy we re-signed before I get into the losses, actually. But Jordan Willis, defensive lineman. He ended up picking up a career-high 3 sacks last season. And he appeared in 17 games over the last 2 years with the Niners. And he's picked up 5.5 sacks over those 17 games. 1 forced fumble. And Jordan Willis, so Jordan Willis obviously most known for the blocked punt in the divisional round against Green Bay that led the Niners on to the NFC Championship game. So another good defensive line signing, another good depth player for our defensive line rotation. So good to get him back.
Yeah, definitely.
And a guy that I think this is just a depth signing because you have the off-season 90-man roster. But we signed cornerback Darqueze Dennard, former first-round pick of the Bengals in 2014. We ended up picking him up late in the season last year. He appeared in 1 game, the Week 18 win over the Rams, and he played 21 defensive snaps and registered 1 tackle. So, again, I think with Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Dante Johnson, Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore, I think he's probably not going to make the roster. Maybe he's a practice squad guy. But you've got a 90-man off-season roster, so you got to bring guys in and have them compete for jobs. But I certainly wouldn't expect to. I mean, he's a former first-round pick, so maybe he catches on, but I don't know. Who knows? We cut HaHa Clinton Dix last year. I was excited to get HaHa Clinton Dix, and then we cut him in the preseason. And I was like, all right, well, that sucks. We never got to see him play in a real game. The Niners also signed defensive lineman Kerry Hyder to a 1-year deal. Kerry Hyder, of course, if you know that name, was with us in 2020. And then he spent 2021 in Seattle, where he appeared in 15 games, started 7. He had 33 tackles, 1.5 sacks. So not a great year in Seattle. The previous year in San Francisco, with defensive line Chris Kocurek, who he'd worked with previously in Detroit. He got a career-high 8.5 sacks, which led the team in 2020. Of course, that was the year Bosa was out, so interesting to get him back. We did also lose Arden Key, who was, Arden Key came up with 6.5 sacks last year. It seemed like late in the season, every week we were talking about Arden Key getting a sack or a half sack. So he ended up signing with Jacksonville today on a 1-year, $7 million contract. So
fucking Jacksonville, man.
Yeah, Jacksonville's loading up. So we get Kerry Hyder back after 1 year in Seattle, but we lose Arden Key. It would have been nice to get them both back, but hopefully Kerry Hyder can, reclaim that magic and get another 8.5 sack season. Of course, that season was when there was no Nick Bosa on the field, so he did get more opportunities. And we also lost Richie James Jr. to the Giants on a 1-year deal. Richie, of course, our 7th-round selection in 2018, mainly a kick returner for us. But he had caught 38 passes for 689 yards and 3 touchdowns throughout his 3 seasons. Of course, Richie sat out all last year with a knee injury. That 689 yards over 38 catches, it's good for an 18.1 yard per catch.
Jeez.
So Richie James, he didn't get a lot of opportunities as a receiver, but when we did throw to him, I mean, he made the best of it. Obviously, 2020 was his best year when he caught 23 passes, 394 yards, and a touchdown. And then we also lost, changing up our corner position, star nickel corner K'Waun Williams to the Denver Broncos on a 2-year, $7 million deal. He's been with us the last 5 years since Kyle's been the coach. Over the course of that time, he's recorded 4 picks, 17 defensive passes, 8 forced fumbles, 5 sacks, 19 tackles for a loss, 9 quarterback hits, and also 301 tackles. So K'Waun Williams, definitely a good player. Last year, he started 8 games, appeared in 14, and he had a pick, 4 passes defensed, 52 tackles, a sack, and a fumble forced. So gonna miss the Shark. That was his nickname, the Shark, our nickel corner. But that's what we were talking about earlier. There's a possibility that either Ambry Thomas or Dante Johnson ends up being our new nickel corner. So hopefully one of them can step up. Now, Dante Johnson's a guy that's got some versatility because he can play outside corner or he can play the slot. So I think that if he is called upon, he could be a guy that fills that position. And then also, he didn't play for us last year, but, just because of his association with the Niners, you got to mention Solomon Thomas, our former number 3 overall pick in the famed 2017 draft when we could have gotten Mahomes. I know all the Niners fans always shit on that. But Solomon Thomas, which is understandable. I mean, Solomon Thomas for his Niners career had 5.5 sacks.
But that's that hindsight mentality. Well, in hindsight, no shit, but
Solomon Thomas was supposed to be a disruptive player, and he got played a lot of his time out of position, outside when he should have been played inside as a defensive lineman. The Raiders played him inside last year, and he actually had his best year when he had 3.5 sacks, which is a career high in one season. He had 5.5 sacks in 3 seasons with us. So he signed with the Jets. So another former Niner going over to join Salah in New York. So hopefully good things happen for Solly. I like Solomon Thomas as a person. I know he never lived up to expectations, but certainly no reason to shit on him as a human being. I hope good things for him. And weird that he's going there and Richie James is going to the Giants. So New York team's taking a couple former Niners.
Yeah.
They need a lot of help though because they're terrible. But yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of it. I mean, the other thing that I just wanted to briefly touch on is the annual league meeting came up recently, and John Lynch was quoted as saying that it's not likely, after carrying him over for the last 3 seasons, despite being banged up, that Dee Ford will be returning. John Lynch was quoted as saying, "I don't see a lot of hope in him being a factor for us on the field moving forward. I think we've tried to be as patient as possible, and at no fault of D, he just ran into a bad situation with his back where he couldn't get healthy." So it does seem like we're finally going to move on from him. Obviously, I know we've discussed it on the show before. He's only appeared in, I think it's 18 games ever. Maybe, it's something like 18 games. But he's had 9.5 sacks in those 18 games. So he's been disruptive when he's been on the field, but he's hardly ever been on the field. Last year, limited to 6 games and 3 sacks. So good to get him, finally moved on. And I mean, originally when we acquired him, it was on a 5-year, $85.5 million deal. So, I mean, we've paid him a lot of money to kind of just sit around. So we're going to end up recouping a little bit of that on the salary cap by releasing him. But that's notable. And also, as mentioned at the annual league meetings, it has been discussed from both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan that the expectation is not for Jimmy Garoppolo to be released, at all. It's pretty much the plan to trade him or retain him on the roster. At least that's what we're hearing from both Kyle and John at this point. So, I mean, here we are on the 30th of March, and Jimmy's still on the roster. I mean, obviously he's still not going to be able to throw until probably OTAs or maybe even training camp. But no trade in sight as far as that goes.
I think keeping him for another season could be beneficial for the team anyway. So, assuming they can rework his contract and not pay him as much if he's not the starting quarterback.
And that was the other thing I was going to just briefly mention. That was the other thing that they said, that there's a possibility that he can stay for the same for the same cap hit, which is, I believe, for that year. I mean, he was getting like an average of $28 million. I think his cap hit for next season is 23.5. I want to say. So, if he does stay as the backup, and it is projected that Trey would start, Jimmy, obviously, if he doesn't get that deal reworked, would be the highest paid backup in the NFL for sure. But it would be good to have some insurance. I mean, I would say that as a Niners fan, I feel more comfortable going into next season with Jimmy Garoppolo as our backup than Nate Sudfeld. Nothing against Nate, but we've seen Jimmy go on some runs and do some good things with this team. We have not seen anything of Nate Sudfeld other than preseason snaps. But that's all we wanted to touch on. Just, not a whole lot of news this week. Next week, we're going to be getting ready for the we've got the draft in about a month. Obviously, the Niners don't draft until the 61st pick in the second round, because we don't have a first-round pick because of the Trey Lance trade. But, yeah, we'll talk about maybe some prospects for the Niners and also some prospects for the Washington Commanders. So stay in tune in for those segments as well. But that's all we have this week, Faithful. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next week.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
And that's going to do it this week for the Extra Point Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're not already, make sure you like and subscribe to us here on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we also have TikTok. Follow us there. And hope you like the show, everybody.
And if you're fans of the Niners, remember to check out the Niner News Update. And if you're fans of the Commanders, remember to check out the Commanders Countdown.
Absolutely.